Hi, it's Rob over at 103 Avondale. The homeowner brought up an interesting thing that's happening on these back patio doors that I had trouble understanding at first, but now I'm starting to see it. The first issue, which is sort of independent of the other one, and I'll just show you. When I put the left door into the fully closed position, locked in the track over here, if I look dead on, I can see that this door mullion lines up directly with the one beyond it, so that there's a full seal. The little U-channel thing here seals with the other one around it, and you can't hear any noise past here. So that door is fully set where it's supposed to be at its sort of maximum close point. I can still slide this back and forth a little bit, but even if I slid it that way, it's not lined up, but it's only not lined up by about a 1/4 inch, give or take. So if I leave that where it is, as you know, the most it can go that way, and then I close this door against it and lock it. So these two doors now move as one. First of all, as you can see, when I pull on this door, the latch isn't quite grabbing that tightly, to the point where if I pull on this door, there's a lot of daylight coming through, and there's actually a full gap exposed right through the two doors, where it's not really happening on the bottom. And then if I push it together to the point where I'm actually forcefully pushing this door against that door with the latch still locked, I can see at the bottom that they're fully touching in full contact. But up at the top, I can see, again, there's a gap. You can see that there's daylight coming through, which means that the door is sitting slightly off kilter and needs to be adjusted so it's more plumb. I'm not sure if that one's out of plumb and needs to be plumbed to this one, or if that one's plumb and this one needs to be plumbed up to it. But one of the two of them is definitely slightly out of alignment, and it's causing the fact that there's a little bit of daylight coming through there. The other issue is, again, with this one pushed as much to this side as possible, this door is still sealed somewhat, but it's off the door behind it by, let's say, a 1/4 inch, give or take. When I come over to this side, the out of alignment is about a 1/2 inch. So this door overlaps that one by about a 1/2 inch. And if you actually, number one, you can put your fingers in behind here, but more importantly, you can actually hear, and I'll be quiet for a second. You can hear a draft coming through, and you can also hear there's a lawnmower outside somewhere down the street. And you can actually hear the noise coming from this gap here. So there's air coming in, and there's a noise, and it's not fully sealing. Now, if I take this door and the left door and unlatch it, and then move this door totally out of the way so it's not an issue. Here's the noise I was talking about. You can hear the wind, and there was a mower or whatever going. If I take this door now, without that door in the way, this door will close almost perfectly in line with the other one, maybe out by 1/8 of an inch or so. And this seal all of a sudden is totally sealed up, and it's actually much more firm now. If I push it front to back, it's totally locked in this little U-channel. And again, the alignment of this panel to this panel are lined up almost perfectly. Like I said, maybe a touch out, but very close. As soon as I close this door against it, actually, one thing to point out, when this door is fully closed, I'm noticing that the pin on the toe lock doesn't even hit the locking position on the plate at the bottom. So I think either the door needs to be adjusted, or this plate needs to be adjusted so that this door can stay in that position. However, if this door was to stay exactly in that position, and then you pull this door closed to it and lock it, number one, you have this big gap of air at the top because it hasn't been pulled tight, but you run into the same thing on the opposite side here, that you see this great big gap. It's about 5/8 to 3/4 on this side, where it doesn't overlap the frame. And again, I can get my fingers right in behind here, where it should be almost, this panel should almost be perfectly lined up with the panel behind it. So there's definitely something going on with these doors, and I don't know if it's the sizing of the doors, or if the exterior fixed panels need to be shifted further out to either side, so that when these doors close this left door closes to the middle and the right door closes to the middle, that there's more overlap on either end panel because the fixed panels are further out to the outside. I'm not sure if that's the issue or if the whole sizing of the panels is slightly off and it's just too big for itself. But definitely more than anything, the fact that these two doors are closed up against each other as tightly as possible and the latch is locked, the fact that there's an air gap here is obviously an issue. So even if I like slam it closed, it's funny, if I pull this thing together, both doors actually move as one, and there's a lot of wiggle room in it. And again, when I push it to the left, there's a little bit of daylight there at the bottom, but not much, but a huge gap at the top. And if I pull them both to the right, that door actually completely comes undone. It doesn't even latch fully. So it seems like the latch also needs a slight adjustment because it's not grabbing on to the latch plate quite properly. So there's a few things here that need to get looked at. The latch, now that I notice it as I'm pulling the doors together, but also definitely an adjustment of the doors. The fact that there's daylight here is an issue, and the alignment of this panel with the panel behind it needs to be adjusted. And this one, which actually pretty well perfectly lines up with the panel behind it to the point where there's nowhere for my fingers to even go. It's a totally flush surface. On this side, as I mentioned, is now the same thing as the other side was, about 3/4 of an inch overhang to the point where you can hear the draft coming through. And again, I can get my fingers right in behind here. So definitely some adjustments needed on this whole door assembly, and this latch mechanism clearly not grabbing on quite the way it's supposed to. The fact that it opens right up even though it's locked is obviously a bit of an issue. So I'm just sending this to you if you can get someone out to look at servicing this thing again and determine if we need new fixed panels or need new door panels or whatever the case is. But something seems to be missized with the other, in the fact that you should be able to close both panels, causing a full seal here and a full seal there. And it seems at this moment that you can only get a full seal on one. Irrespective of plumbing this out to close up that gap, I doubt very much that that's going to make the world of a difference, closing up a discrepancy of about 3/4 inches. I think it's going to be something a little more invested. So if you guys could get back to me as soon as possible on that, that'd be great. Thanks.